Hello and welcome along to the third round of Lotus Cup Europe. This weekend keeps us in France in the Burgundy region. And of course we're here at Magny Cours. Now the circuit is just over 2.5 miles and 17 corners that are packed into that short space. So it's certainly going to make for some interesting racing this weekend. Qualifying has just finished, and for many of our drivers it's the first time they've driven here at Magny Cours. But that certainly hasn't stopped our reigning champion Jeremy Lorenko being on top form, qualifying in pole position, and John Rass is keeping up his form as well, qualifying P1 in production class. So it's about that time that we go and catch up with the drivers and find out how they're feeling ahead of race one. Our reigning champion Jeremy, of course, qualified on pole position. Heading into race one, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. I think we're going to have a good race. Next to my friend Xavier, who's hiding. We're going to do our best to win and get our team on the top step.
David McNulty just qualified in 7th position. Obviously a good qualifying, good start to the race here at Magny Cours. What's it like being here?
It's a very exciting circuit. Got a bit of everything, very, very fast corners and some really big, very fast decelerations. Qualifying
in 3rd position, and that's a pretty good start to this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not been too bad. I've had a bit of a struggle with the car, with the brakes, but yeah, it was a bit of catch up, but yeah, we got ourselves up there, so it's been good.
The track conditions this weekend have been really good, dry. There was a bit of rain forecast for qualifying, but luckily it stayed off. The setup on the car has been quite tricky. We've had to play around a little bit with the rear suspension due to the fact that the tarmac, I've found, hasn't got a major amount of grip. But it's good, I've enjoyed it. I've never been here before, so it's just a big learning curve, really.
Now it's about that time where we have a look at the championship table. John Rass has had an incredible start to the season and of course puts himself on the top spot of that table for now. John Walker in a close 2nd place, and last year's overall champion Jeremy Lorenko following a close 3rd. The 38 Lotus Cup Europe cars pull up behind me for the start of race one. Of course, it's a standing start this time round here at Magny Cours. Jeremy Lorenko on pole, and of course not forgetting that John Rass is P1 in production class. So it's time for me to move out the way and hand over to the racing.
A huge grid headed by Jeremy Lorenko, alongside him then Javier Georges. Then it's Gregory Rass and Christophe Lezondre on row 2. Nicolas Frere and Philippe Loup, a very rapid row 3 ahead of Nikolai Ibsen, 7th, a little bit lower than we normally would see him. Nicholas Walker likewise plenty to do from 11th. Great to see Steve Williams up there though in 12th place in the Evora, and David Harvey will always make progress through the course of the race. Sven Pettersson and James McAnulty right to the fore of the Elise runners, just clear of Thierry Edouard in 27th. David McAnulty completing the top 30, and then it's Yves Kureman and Kees First-Lois who round out the absolutely gigantic 38 car field. Lights go out and away we go. It's a great start from the blue car of Javier Georges. He jumps Jeremy Lorenko as they sprint towards the opening turn. It's then Gregory Rass who slots through into 3rd place. They will jostle for position a little bit lower down the order. Natalie Genu Prache looking to make progress, as it's Javier Georges who has that advantage from the black and orange car of Jeremy Lorenko. We're in car with Christophe Lezondre, who got away well, running in 4th place as we head along the back straight en route to the Adelaide hairpin, one of the iconic corners here at the Magny Cours circuit. Just admire the absolutely enormous field as they pound towards the first big overtaking opportunity on the lap. Everybody jostling position in car with Lezondre. He's got Nicolas Frere challenging to the outside. Frere sprints past Lezondre as the Frenchman gets the power down, maintains 5th position as they just roll through the undulations, then into this sequence of quite high-speed chicanes. Challenging layout, Magny Cours, always been very popular as a test venue. Of course, first hosted the French Grand Prix back in 1991, right through until the end of the last decade, as Xavier Georges leads the way. Jeremy Lorenko, headlights ablaze, looking to stay with him, and then Gregory Rass in fairly hot pursuit. Then they get back to that fight for 4th between Frere and Lezondre, and then the next group of cars headed by Philippe Loup on downhill then for Xavier Georges. It's been a good lap for Georges. Jeremy Lorenko may be taking a little bit of time to get some heat into his tyres, because he has got Gregory Rass swarming all over his tail as they head down into this final corner. The one section of the circuit actually that's really changed since 1991, this little flick through the chicane that brings them on to the end of the lap. In car with Losandra still embroiled in this excellent fight for fourth place with Nicolas Ferrer. This pair of them then head into the very fast left-hander that opens the lap before the never-ending right-hander that opens into the Estoril turn. There we see looking to side through, that's Nicholas Walker. Car sits then a gap back to the squabbling Elises, and that's the beauty of the Lotus Cup Europe. With 4 classes, there's always somebody to race with. We're in car with Jason McAnulty. The ES Motorsport driver has a good seesaw at the wheel. The Elise remains such a popular and enjoyable car. He's just behind the silver and black car of Sven Pettersson as McAnulty gets the power down nice and early, draws alongside Pettersson. Meanwhile, in 4th place, Nicolas Ferrer defending from Lisandre. Lisandre, the first of the 211s, has got Philippe Luc just beginning to close up onto his tail as well. So it's Xavier Georges who leads the way. Jeremy Lorenko getting into the groove of the race a little bit more, beginning to try and chase down Georges as they get on the brakes. Lorenko closes right up. Of course, Xavier Georges had a pretty wretched trip to Dijon-Prenois, bringing out the red flag in the first race. Great to see he and the car back in fine fettle this weekend as they head into another of these swooping chicanes. Be careful to mind the sausage curbs and the barriers, and then heavily on the brakes for the right-hander. Getting towards the closing stages of the lap, and Lorenko just beginning to close the gap down. They've got, though, Gregory Rass there in 3rd place, staying with them in the Evora, so Rass very much in the mix. In car Jason McAnulty, there's David Harvey in the 340R, powering past Sven Pettersson. Harvey just makes a little bit of adjustment to his helmet as he jinks through the chicane. There is Philip van Pedevega at the back of that queue, and there we see Jason McAnulty still behind Pettersson. Meanwhile, in the front of the field, the battle remains as close as ever was, and they're now just beginning to put a tenth or two here or there on Greg Rass. The fight for 4th comes together very, very nicely. In car is Jean-Baptiste Loop. He's part of the next group of cars. The 211's such a good-looking car, very menacing as well. Always look like they're immense fun to drive. As David Harvey looks to make more progress, that's Phil Capstick just ahead of him. So the 2 British drivers adapting well to the Magny Cours circuit. Then we've got this fantastic fight amongst the production class runners, headed still by Sven Pettersson. The rest of the queue all forming up behind as they sprint along down this back straight on towards the Adelaide hairpin. Key overtaking opportunity, don't forget. And Pettersson knows that he covers the inside line. Nice to know it's the orange car of Max Alves to the outside, and Alves possibly under threat from McAnulty, who squeezes past him, and Alves then veers across the road, defending from some of the rivals just behind him. We go in car, meanwhile, with our 2nd place runner, Jeremy Lorenko, who continues his close inspection of the rear spoiler of Xavier Georges' car. They've got plenty of time to play with here, don't forget. It's a 30-minute race in the Lotus Cup Europe, which means it's a little bit too long to be an out-and-out sprint, but it's not quite short enough to sit back and totally bide your time. But certainly in this opening sequence of laps, Jeremy Lorenko can content himself to work with Xavier Georges and ease clear of Gregory Rass, and once that job is done, then that releases Lorenko to really challenge his compatriot. So the pair of them propel into another lap. It's a pretty murky day in Magny Cours. Fortunately, though, the rain's staying away for the moment. There is Rass in 3rd place. Then we've got this fantastic fight for 4th. Nicolas Ferrer still just clear of Christophe Lisandre. The next group of cars, and then it is Jean-Baptiste Loop who heads to the next train. And now Lorenko really beginning to apply the pressure to Xavier Georges as they head on towards the Adelaide hairpin. Likewise, you just wonder if Lisandre is going to be close enough this time around to challenge Nicolas Ferrer. Well, Lorenko can't make the move stick at the hairpin, so Georges maintains his advantage as he jinks onward with about a little bit behind. It's Nikolai Ibsen who is looking to make some progress. I don't think he could quite squeeze through and snatch the place. The leading duo continuing to do battle. And you can see that Jeremy Lorenko just using a little bit less road in comparison to Javier Georges. As a result, it means that he's just getting slightly faster exits from the turns, but he's not yet been able to really make that challenge for the lead, but he's still got plenty of time remaining. The rest of the field sprinting through this leading duo. Breakaway, but you can now see as Javier Georges defends from Lorenko, Gregory Rass is just beginning to close the gap down a bit more. It's margins of 1/10 of a second here or there, nothing more than that. But this is one of the beauties of Lotus Cup Europe. You can have these really tense battles unfolding through the course of the race. So another lap reeled off and consigned to history books. It's Javier Georges who continues to lead from Jeremy Lorenko here at Magny Cours. Gregory Rass is there in third place and sticking with them. We are about to take a short break. Join us in a couple of moments' time as the action continues in Magny Cours. Welcome back to Magny Cours and the Lotus Cup Europe. We are halfway through the opening race of the weekend. It's currently being led by Javier Georges under great pressure from Jeremy Lorenko. This is a fight a little bit lower down the order. As Thierry Vehis leads the way from Anthony Fournier and John Packer. They've got Nicholas Walker and Steve Williams in close pursuit behind them as they reel off another lap, head through the very quick left-hander and then onward towards the challenging Estoril turn. Also could get Jacques Villeneuve sticking Williams in the barriers on the exit during qualifying back in the mid-90s. And then it's the long run down the Adelaide Straight. There's the fight for fourth, still held by Nicolas Frère. Under pressure from Christophe Desondre and now Nicolas Ibsen. Then we've got this next group of cars as Fournier has got John Packer on his tail. We ride in car with Anthony Fournier heading towards the braking zone for the Adelaide hairpin. And to the inside, launching to the inside, is Nicholas Walker, who takes a big old ride over the curbs. Walker continues on his way as John Packer looks to reclaim the place that he lost on the brakes. Can't quite do it. Steve Williams also looking to see if he can squeeze up a couple of places. And in fact, it's Packer who really loses out as Williams glides past him. So John Packer, having really instigated that manoeuvre, now finding himself dropping down the order, but then Williams runs wide in the Evora. We drop into the production fight in car with David McAnulty. The engine roars en route to the hairpin. On the brakes, down a couple of gears, McAnulty turns through, and that is Dennis van den Sarvel, who he is trying to apply pressure to. Back in car with David McAnulty. There is the silver Elisa van den Sarvel just ahead of us. Again, McAnulty gets on the brakes, then just picks up throttle, looks to the inside. Van den Sarvel having absolutely none of it, chops across his bows, so they remain as they were. McAnulty taking lots and lots of steering lock on, one hand on the gears, looking for as good an exit as possible. Meanwhile, into the traffic, here are the race leaders. The blue car is Javier Georges, the black machine is Jeremy Lorenko. As the pair of them squirt their way out the Adelaide hairpin. And signing through some of these production releases might just give the opening to Jeremy Lorenko. We're just over half race distance. In third place it remains Gregory Rass, who stayed with this pair in the early stages but has just been dropped a little bit in the past couple of tours. Right in car with Lorenko. He picks up the throttle. Javier Georges, though, doing a good job of managing the pace, making Lorenko do a lot of the hard work. More traffic for them to contend with. That's Rob Woolridge, who does exactly what the race director would have told him to, sticks to the racing line, makes the faster Exige V6 Cup R's work their way around him as they sprint on downhill towards the end of another lap. Now, where is the opening going to come for Jeremy Lorenko? That's surely the question he's starting to ask himself, because he's been within a couple of tenths of a second of Javier Georges now for several laps, but he's not even really got close enough to make that challenge for the pass. And yes, there are still plenty of laps remaining, but at the same time, the element of surprise for Lourenco has maybe gone away somewhat. There is Gregory Rass in third position. Rass off in pursuit of Rob Woolridge to put the lap on him. It's Eric Van Tove, who is lapped by the race leaders, and that plays in terms of Lourenco, who is appreciably close this time round to Xavier Georges as they head on towards the Adelaide hairpin. And this is a good opportunity for Lourenco. He thinks about it but can't quite do it. Maybe that was a dress rehearsal for something a little bit later on from Lourenco, because of course the big unknown here is that if Jeremy Lourenco found a way past, could he pull clear as Dennis van den Sarvel runs into some problems, at least pointing in the wrong direction. As Nikolai Ibsen powers on his way. We go in car with David McAnulty. That's Jason McAnulty just up the road ahead of him. And there goes Ibsen. Nikolai Ibsen has moved through into fourth place. He's beginning to break wide open that fight for fourth as well. So I suspect he might. It's Philippe Luke then, currently in fifth. As David McAnulty applying the pressure, or at least attempting to Jason, but they've also got to be slightly mindful of the goings on in their mirrors. It's really Nicolas Frere who's lost out from that. He has slipped back into the clutches now of Jean-Baptiste Luc, Thierry Verheest and the rest of them. So here is Christophe Legendre. It's Philippe Luc who is his target. Legendre still the foremost of the 211s, of course. Former race winner in Lotus Cup Europe. Very handy driver is Christophe Legendre. Fight for the lead continues as it ever was. Now this is the point where really Lourenco needs to start setting up Javier Georges for a run into the hairpin. A good trip through the chicane and then a smooth negotiation of Estoril is exactly what he needs. They've got this training cars headed by Phil Capstick and Max Alves to contend themselves with. First of all, but Lourenco, you can see, just getting ever closer to the tail of Georges, who dips on the brakes a little bit earlier than Lourenco into Estoril. Jeremy Lourenco using all the road, runs out wide. That will give him, he hopes, the swooping line through as they get the power down and sprint on their way. Capstick, meanwhile, also looking to overtake. Headlights being flashed by Javier Georges. This is the last thing he wants. We go in car with Lourenco, and they may just run out of road here into the hairpin. Oh, there was a gap there for Jeremy Lourenco had he chosen to take it, but he thinks better of it. It means they all safely negotiate the hairpin. It's one of the nice things about Lotus Cup Europe, of course. The drivers are all very friendly with each other off track, and it means that the on-track behaviour is generally exemplary. You don't see the unnecessary incidents that sometimes plague other categories of racing. But this battle is beginning to reach its boiling point, you suspect. Getting towards the last stage of the race as well. Lourenco is running out of laps. He knows that he needs to make this pass on Javier Georges sooner rather than later. It really is giving Lourenco plenty to focus on. Nicolas Frere, meanwhile, has got to focus on his mirrors, because there is Jean-Baptiste Loup, Thierry Verheest, Nicholas Walker, as we return to the fight for the lead. And again, Lourenco gets the good run on Georges down towards the Adelaide hairpin, and this time there's no traffic. Is Lourenco going to be close enough to challenge? He comes out at the last moment and launches the inside down into first gear. Get the power down, and away he goes, and he makes the move stick. Lovely stuff that from Jeremy Lourenco. He takes the lead of the race eventually away from Xavier Georges, and that, I'd have to say, wasn't the most locked in of the opportunities that we've seen for Lourenco, but it was the one where he felt confident to commit. Xavier Georges saw him coming, gave him racing room, and therefore through goes Lourenco. Right in car with that new race leader now. Can he begin to build that buffer over Georges? Already you can see it's opened out to 3 or 4 car lengths, but they still have the traffic conundrum. But they manage to ease clear of Jean Poitier. And they've got a couple of laps remaining. Lourenco can't afford, though, to relax his focus. Now he's in the lead of the race. He also can't afford any sort of a dip in pace, because that will give Xavier Georges the chance to jump right up onto his tail. In car with Christophe Legendre. Zondra closing up onto the tail of Philippe Loop, and Loop caught a little bit in traffic there. That's Max Alves, who he's trying to find a way past, and Alves got that a little bit wrong. They've also got Janos Santa as well, just ahead of them in the bright yellow Exige V6 Cup R, and the Zondra therefore taking advantage as they close onto the tail of Santa into the final chicane. It's Christophe the Red Nose 211 trying to find a way past Santa at the moment, but the straight line speed of the Exige V6 Cup R makes that fairly tricky undertaking. Meanwhile, Thierry Verheest under a little bit of pressure now from Nicholas Walker. Again, they've got traffic between them. That's Thierry Edouard, who is lapped by Walker. Walker, in fact, getting a very good exit from the corner, closing up onto terms with the Evora again as they head onward towards the conclusion of the lap. Well, we saw earlier on in the race, of course, that Walker has got more than an abundance of commitment when it comes to overtaking manoeuvres if he needs to take advantage of it. Let's see what he can do now. Not a huge amount as closes up on Verheest. They've still got as well Jean-Baptiste Loop there. He is in the 211, who is hardly romping off into the distance either. So some of these battles coming together very nicely in the closing stage of this first race of the weekend here in Magny Cours. Headlights and plays as well from Steve Williams. And this time Walker's got a very good run on Verheest. They've got Phil Capstick to try and lap. Capstick again does the right thing, sticks to the racing line, but I think that may serve to inadvertently box out Nicholas Walker. Indeed, that's exactly what happens, so there's no opening there for Walker, and Capstick has to make the corner. Makes Walker take a slightly circuitous route, doesn't really cause any undue duress for Walker. As headlights ablaze, here comes Jeremy Lorenko en route to the checkered flag. It was a very nicely judged drive, this, from Lorenko. He dropped behind Xavier Georges from pole position, waited for the right moment, pounced, took the lead, and is going to come through to win the first race of the weekend in the Lotus Cup Europe here. Magny Cours chased the line by Xavier Georges, with Gregory Rass in third place. Plenty for Jeremy Lorenko and Xavier Georges to enjoy about that. I think they will have thoroughly enjoyed their dice. So let's have a look then at the final results. Lorenko wins it from Georges, then Gregory Rass and Nikolai Ibsen. Christophe Zondra, the first of the 211s, in 6th place, just behind Philippe Loop. John Packer eventually faded to 13th. Nicholas Frel disappointed with 12th position. David Harvey well up in 15th place. And John Rass once more is the 4 of the production runners. Great drive from the McAnultys to 26th and 27th place, respectively. Rob Woolridge is who concludes the top 30. As ever in a championship with such high driving standards, the casualties were few and far between. We lost Dennis van der Sarvel, Frank LaRoche and James Knight along the way. For Jeremy Lorenko, it's time to celebrate on the podium in Magny Cours.
I don't know what to say.
It was a great race with Javier. I've been dreaming of it for a very long time. He drove very well, and our friends have done a great job. We have a great team, with great people. We could be proud of our teamwork. We did a really good job.
Xavier, congratulations back on the podium after race 1. Must feel good.
I'm very happy to be on the podium, because after Dijon, which didn't go very well, we only finished putting the car back together on Thursday, the day before the race. And thanks to our friends, we're on the podium today. 2 cars crossed the line, we dreamed of it, but today he was a lot faster. I got a good start. I could keep up with him for the whole race, but he was a lot faster. I'm very happy to have done this race with him. We had a lot of fun.
It's race 2 and day 2 here at Magny Cours. We're down in the pit lane here because the race starts as a rolling start today. Now, there was an exciting battle between Jeremy Lorenko and Xavier Georges yesterday. I'm sure that battle is going to commence in just a moment, so let me move out of the way and hand you straight to the action.
Well, the grid for the rolling start race is, of course, the same as one for the standing start, so it's Jeremy Lorenko on pole alongside him Javier Georges. Then we have got Gregory Rass and Christophe Lezondre on row 2. As the field filter their way through the very slow chicane that concludes the lap here at Magny Cours. As we get underway now, will we see a better start this time round from Lourenco, who powers his way into turn 1, takes the early advantage. Javier Georges looks to try and move clear of Gregory Rass as the front group of cars all cleanly through. And there you have it, Lourenco from Georges and Rass, as a little bit of a trip through the gravel trap for Max Alves. He should rejoin as we go in car with John Rass. Gets very, very close to Phil Capstick as they head through Estoril. As a result of that, Sven Pettersson able to just ease past John Rass. Meanwhile, Gregory Rass has an excellent run on Javier Georges as they head on towards the Adelaide hairpin. Now that's a battle worth watching, as is the one right at the front of the production class, as Pettersson just clear of the yellow car of John Rass, and Gregory Rass meanwhile in the white Evora able to move up into third place ahead of Javier Georges. Now will he be able to maintain that place for long? Because we saw in race 1, Georges and the race leader Jeremy Lourenco broke well clear of the rest of the field. This time they got a little bit of a spoiler in the pack in the form of Gregory Rass. This, however, is good news, you would suspect, for Jeremy Lourenco, because he will be looking, if he can, to build a little bit of a buffer in the early stages of the race. We go in car with Jean-Baptiste Luc, that's Nicholas Walker just ahead of him. He's on the brakes. You can see the challenge from Javier Georges in second place, all over the tail of Greg Rass, looking to make ground. The same in the fight for fourth. Nikolai Ibsen just ahead of Christophe Lezondre, but Lezondre again trying to exploit the performance of the 211 in the early stages. A little bit of a ride over the curb there, soaring the wheel for Jeremy Lourenco as he comes through to end the first lap of the race. Really got this group all the way back to Jean-Pierre Genu-Prache, running more or less as that continuous train. It's been a reasonably good second half of the first lap as well for Gregory Rass. He closes up onto the tail of Lourenco, back in cut with Christophe Lezondre, who tries to close up onto the tail of Nikolai Ibsen. There is Anthony Fournier. He's some way down. He's got Janos Santa behind him, and then the production class leader of John Rass. Frenetic pace being set in these early stages as the leading trio, as they did in race 1, easing away, but this time it's Ibsen who's gone fourth early on. You've seen Nikolai Ibsen on the podium more than once in Lotus Cup Europe. He could challenge as the race unfolds. Jean-Pierre Genu-Prache, meanwhile, coming under a little bit of pressure. And there is our production leader, John Rass, Sven Pettersson and Thierry Edouin, the next group of cars in pursuit. You can just see from the poise of Lourenco's these V6 Cup R, he's trying to break away and break Gregory Rass's resistance. Rass, for the moment though, in the Evora, staying in touch. Then we've got this little bit of a gap back to the next group of cars, concluded by John Packer, the black 211. Packer just in pursuit of Thierry Verheest, as Lourenco not really breaking away at the moment. Javier Georges, you get a sense, lurking with intent in the blue number 9 car for any chink of daylight that is left open by Gregory Rass, giving him the opportunity, if he possibly can, to find a way to slip through. Meanwhile, as ever, Philippe Loup looking to the inside of Christophe Lezondre, and Loup bounces through. Great move. Lezondre gave him plenty of space, however. May look to fight back Christophe Lezondre on next to the chicane as they head towards the opening complex of turns. Gregory Rass in second place. And we get this group of cars. That's a big moment there for Jean-Baptiste. All around he goes into the face of the traffic, and Thierry Verheest takes very effective evasive action, and that's a huge moment for Jean-Baptiste Loup. He will have seen, if nothing else, his bank account flashing before his eyes then, because that car swapped ends very rapidly. Well, there is Max Alves, the bright orange car, recovering from his early indiscretion. Here is the replay of Jean-Baptiste Loup, the aptly named Aventure Racing, because that's exactly what that was, as he gathers up in a very cool, calm and collected way. Only lost a couple of places as a result of all of that. Meanwhile, Jean-Pierre Genius-Praché has got Christophe Laroche just trying to close up onto his tail. The group of cars concluded by Nathalie Genius-Praché. Nathalie Genius-Praché is shown so strongly at Dijon-Prenois. And the team in Raiders, Jean-Pierre Genius-Praché makes the mistake, and that gives an opening to Christophe Laroche. Meanwhile, we return to the front of the field. No change in the order, but Jeremy Lorenko just that couple of tenths of a second further away from Gregory Rass. And then in third place, Xavier Georges sitting as ever behind Gregory Rass, but he can't yet find a way past him. Where is that opening going to come from? I think it's also going to be a case of whether or not Xavier Georges is prepared to back himself and maybe risk the car on the brakes in the Adelaide hairpin, because we saw earlier on there's plenty of traction from these Exige V6 cars. Meanwhile, incoer John Rass, who continues to battle with Phil Capstick. Rass has a little bit of a seesaw at the wheel. Now the frustration here for Rass is that the production class Elise is going to be outgunned on the straights by Phil Capstick with regularity. And through the corners you suspect John Rass is a little bit quicker. So there goes Phil Capstick, reclaims the place for several metres. Rass though substantially faster through the turns. Looks to sell Capstick the dummy, darts to the inside. So the place regained for John Rass. Now he doesn't want to get involved in too much of a tussle here with Phil Capstick, because they are in different classes as Capstick re-passes John Rass. Rass then on the brakes as Capstick just runs a little bit wide, and Rass should be able to ease past Phil Capstick here. Indeed he does, into the final chicane. So the Belgian driver reclaims the place from Capstick along the start and finish straight. Just wonder whether or not Capstick's going to have enough in the way of straight line speed to possibly power past Rass. He doesn't on that occasion, so the pair of them head on their way. Very impressive pace being set, by the way, in all the classes this weekend, because we've seen the lap records falling in both the V6 class, 211 class, the open class and the production class. It's testimony to the standards of driving and preparation of the cars in the Lotus Cup Europe. Still the fight for second place continues. Gregory Rass continues to have Xavier Georges attached to his rear spoiler. So we go back in car with John Rass. We say hello again once more to Phil Capstick. Well, John Rass can be as frustrated as he wants, but it's unfortunately the nature of racing. And it's the beauty of racing, in fact, where you've got different types of cars, is that Rass is always going to be quicker than Capstick through the corners, but just the nature of the car that Capstick is racing, he can't not apply his right foot on the brakes. So let's consult our mirrors. Which side will the black car appear on? This time it's the left-hand side. I don't think you need to be an expert in body language to understand that John Rass possibly a little bit frustrated with the way that his race is unfolding. Meanwhile, even more frustration is going to be Christophe Laroche, whose car dies completely on him and then he fires it back up, gets underway. That looks a little bit more terminal, however, for Anthony Fournier, the 211 being wheeled into retirement. Here's Thierry Verheest. He has got John Packer tucked up onto his tail. A pair of them running just towards the bottom reaches of the top 10. It's riding the curb there. Verheest trying to break away from Packer, but we've seen a couple of times already this season John Packer is a tenacious dicer, perhaps a bit more fond of the tricky conditions. Meanwhile, the leading trio, no change in the order still. Jeremy Lorenko from Gregory Rass and Xavier Georges. The problem for Xavier Georges now is that Gregory Rass is well aware that he's there, and it's whereabouts can Georges possibly cause a little bit of a surprise here for Gregory Rass and slip back past. Certainly not going to be through the final chicane, so the leaders head on to another lap. But as you can see, as Gregory Rass just defends a little bit more from Xavier Georges, that gives the opening to Jeremy Lorenko, which could potentially prove decisive by the time we get round to the checkered flag. So through Estoril, this leading group of cars well clear of the rest of the pack, as they have been throughout the course of the weekend. There's nothing but empty asphalt behind Xavier Georges as we wait for Nikolai Ibsen in fourth. Meanwhile, let's go back into the production class in car with Jason McAnulty. McAnulty having a good old wrestle with his wheel as he comes up onto the tail of Philip van Pevenegger. Van Pevenegger, though, able to drive a wide car when he wants to, keeps McAnulty behind him. This little trio of cars arrive towards the end of the lap. That's James Knight in the sky blue machine just ahead of them. As Jason McAnulty takes a big bite of curb, forces a little bit of a correction, another big bite of curb through the foul chicane, a bit smoother on that occasion though from McAnulty. He might be able to make the move even along the start and finish straight, although I don't think he's quite got the straight line speed that he needs. So here is our race leader, as he has been since the start of the race, Jeremy Lorenko. We're going to take a short break, come back in a couple of minutes time. We'll see if Lorenko can do the double here in Magny Cours in the Lotus Cup Europe. Welcome back to the Lotus Cup Europe. We are midway through the second race of the weekend, and it's our race one winner Jeremy Lorenko who leads, and leads convincingly so from Gregory Rass, with Xavier Georges in third. Here is Nikolai Ibsen in the bright red City Cup R in fourth place, streaking clear of Christophe Desandre and Philippe Loup, who continues to dispute fifth place, and then it's Nicholas Walker in seventh. But this has been a very fine weekend's performance for Jeremy Lorenko, and he now has the traffic to deal with. So that's David McAnulty, and it's Van den Sarvel busy doing battle. Van den Sarvel in the silver machine. We go in car with David McAnulty as Gregory Rass carves his way past him, and therefore we know that we can expect to see Xavier Georges in fairly short order. There goes Georges sprinting through, gives a bit of an opening for McAnulty to the inside of Van den Sarvel. Van den Sarvel make sure he closes that pretty sharply, as second place has never really quite crackled into life, and now Gregory Rass has just been able to open up a little bit of an advantage over Xavier Georges. And what we have seen time and time again in the Lotus Cup Europe is that the balance of performance between these cars is so evenly matched that it comes down to a tenth or two here or there, and therefore once gaps open they can be very hard to close down once more. Oh, Dennis Van den Sarvel in trouble, and that sends Philippe Loup off to take evasive action, and I suspect indeed it has promoted Christophe Desandre up into fifth position. So Van den Sarvel, who has had retirement from a spin in race one, you can see the battle scarring on the front of the car, refettled for race two, at least didn't hit anything on that occasion, he gets back underway, he's not lost too much ground. But here is John Packer, he has got the recovering car of Jean-Baptiste Loup in pursuit. Baptiste Loup of course had that magnificent, monstrous spin here early on at Estoril, now in pursuit. So there is Desandre, you can see the ground that he gained over Philippe Loup after Loup to run wide because of Van den Sarvel's moment. What about the Packer and Jean-Baptiste Loup battle? Here they come then. Not much between them. John Packer, the black car just ahead of Jean-Baptiste Loup, and Loup in terms of pure pace should really be a little bit further up the road than this. But again, it's the old motorsport adage, it's one thing to catch the car in front, it's quite another to find your way past. Magny Cours has always been a circuit notorious for the difficulties in overtaking. It means that Jean-Baptiste Loup might have to try something a little bit brave, a little bit spectacular. They're all getting caught up in the traffic as well. It's Max Alves running wide in the bright orange car, at least he's visible, as the two 211s continue to scrap, and Jean-Baptiste Loup, you can see he's carrying more corner exit speed, but he just can't quite fashion that opening to draw alongside John Packer as they flick through another of the chicanes. And Baptiste Loup looks to the inside, but again the braking distance just that little bit too short. Packer moves across, covers the line, takes away the opening for Jean-Baptiste Loup, and we're getting towards the latter stage of the race. And for Jean-Baptiste Loup is going to do, he's going to have to do it sooner rather than later. Again, he comes out of the bubble just too late to threaten John Packer, and the problem is because these cars are so similar, Jean-Baptiste Loup can't really get the advantage under braking. So it's going to be forcing an error from Packer or something along those lines. Instead he looks to the inside into the left-hander, and then we'll try and maybe make the move through Estoril. You can see how much quicker and more confident through the quick stuff Jean-Baptiste Loop is, but John Packer doing exactly what he needs to do, which is stick to the racing line, focus on these corner exit speeds. As we are in car with David McAnulty. There goes the battle. As the pair of them sprint on towards the Adelaide hairpin. Meanwhile, here is our race leader, Jeremy Lourenco. Gregory Rass just beginning to be a little bit closer to Lourenco than possibly he is to third placement. Xavier Georges' Baptiste Loop looks the inside of John Packer. Oh, that gap's going to close. A little bit of a side swipe. Packer moves aside. There's no way through on that occasion for Jean-Baptiste Loop. Meanwhile, here comes Jeremy Lourenco. Gregory Rass in pursuit, but they're about to head into the final lap of the race. And so Jeremy Lourenco has controlled this one absolutely perfectly. You get the feeling he's never really overexerted the car. There is Xavier Georges in third position. Been a great weekend for Xavier, as he was saying earlier on. The car pretty badly damaged in the accident at Dijon-Prenois. Took a while to repair and pull it back together again. As Lourenco heads on towards the Adelaide hairpin for the final time. This has been a perfect weekend for Lourenco, and one which is going to serve him extremely well in the championship, except to say that, of course, in the production class, John Rass continues to excel, and therefore, because the way the different classes will feed into the overall championship, John Rass, I suspect, will still be the championship leader at the conclusion of this weekend. A little bit of traffic for Lourenco to contend with through this final lap. I don't think it's going to cause him any undue concern, particularly as he's not going to do anything silly and risk the car. At the same time, he can't afford to back off excessively, because Gregory Rass is still there or thereabouts, but Lourenco, an experienced enough campaigner not to get bogged down. So he has just got a handful of corners remaining. It's been the perfect weekend for Lourenco here in Magny Cours, as he heads through the right-hander, just clutch of corners to go, and this time no traffic for Lourenco to worry about either. So he arrives into the final complex, and it's going to be the double victory in the Lotus Cup Europe at Magny Cours for Jeremy Lourenco. A great weekend at home for the Frenchman. Second place going the way of Gregory Rass, and Xavier Georges completing the podium. You can see just how delighted Lourenco is with that, and rightly so. He's driven magnificently here around the technical challenge of Magny Cours, with both Rass and Xavier Georges very good value as well. So let's take a look at the final results then. Lourenco wins it from Rass and Xavier Georges. Christophe Legendre once more the top 2:11 in 5th position. John Packer losing out to Jean-Baptiste Loop late on. David Harvey in 14th, the top of the open class runners. Excellent drive for David. And John Rass once more claiming production honours, clear of Thierry Edouin and Sven Pettersson. At least for John Rass, he was able to shake off Phil Capstick. Jason McAnulty triumphed in the McAnulty family battle. Unfortunately, James Knight, Anthony Fournier didn't quite make it through to the checkered flag.
Well, it's the usual suspects in 1, 2 and 3, so let's join them celebrating on the podium.
Once more onto the top step of the rostrum for a delighted Jeremy Lourenco.
Congratulations to all three of you. A 1, 2, 3 in race 2 as well as race 1. It's been a fantastic weekend.
Oui. Un fantastique week-end.
A fantastic weekend. A team victory. It's been a long time since we've been on the podium with Greg. It's been a long time since he's been up here. He's been missing it. We're happy to share it together. Thanks to the friends at the back over there below. Without them, we wouldn't be here. They build a good chassis.
Et Forza au Jurassic Racing Team. Et vive le Jura! Now, Dave, congratulations, winner of your class. You went from the naughty list to the winners list.
Yeah, I did, and I'd no idea where I was. I just kept going as fast as I could, and I saw one or two of the people that I was racing with that I didn't really know, and until I got back in. So yeah, it was quite good.
John, currently top of the championship table and 2 wins this weekend. It must feel good.
Yeah, I feel you. The first race was not so good because I was alone, but the second race I had a fight with Fit Capstick. It was harder for me because it slowed me down in some curves, and I had on the back Sven, I think. So it was more a big fight in the first part of the race, but the result is very good for me in the championship.
Christophe, congratulations, winner of the 211 class. It must feel good.
Thanks. We had a great weekend. We had a lot of fun. So leaving Magny Cours then, it's John Rass who leads the standings ahead of Jeremy Lorenko and Thierry Edouin. The first of the 211s is Christophe Legendre in 5th, just 3 points ahead of Jean-Baptiste Loup. And the top open class runner is Phil Capstick in 10th, just behind Nicholas Walker.
There's no doubt about it. It's been another incredible weekend of racing for Lotus Cup Europe. Jeremy, Xavier and Gregory are determined to keep those top 3 for their own. John Rass, however, is certainly sitting pretty at the top of the championship leaderboard. So until next time, we'll see you at Spa.